Clippers announcing that Kawhi Leonard will sit tonight's game against the Jazz for load management. This seems counter to NBA rules on, not resting players for nationally televised games, not resting players on the road. Those rules that were put in place about a year and a half ago, they called that Adam Silver is allowed to fine teams up to $100,000. So I did call the league office and sort of said, hey, you guys looking into this at all? And the league office told me the Clippers actually got this approved in advance and that they are, quote, currently in compliance with the policy. Dave, is it too early to load manage Kawhi? The official designation says load management / knee, which is interesting to me. I wonder if it is rest for a specific medical issue, but again, it's load management. That's what they're calling it.
We can't say it's too early because the evidence was last season the Toronto Raptors rested Kawhi for 22 games and won a championship. And so the Clippers can just say, all right, let's take that, apply it to our situation. Why would we not rest him? And we're trying to play for June, obviously. They're not trying to rush Paul George back, and they're not trying to overwork Kawhi Leonard in November. And so it's not fun for us as the fan, as the viewer, to watch and tune in and see the Clippers without them, as much as we love Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams and all those pieces, because Kawhi's that special. But I'd rather see him be at his best in a playoff game where all the stakes matter versus risk something at this stage of the season.
It's a back-to-back for the Clippers, and Doc Rivers came out and said he should play tomorrow night against San Antonio, which is not a nationally televised game. Although, again, against San Antonio, there would probably be shouting if he didn't play that one instead, so.
Well, you brought up a good point. You said you talked to the league and you asked them and they said they're in compliance. When the league schedule comes out and they're saying, okay, listen, if he's healthy, these are the games that we might want to rest him, right? So you contact the league and say, hey, these are the games that we might want to rest a guy that's coming off a knee surgery. These are it. If you still choose to put them on national television, we've let you know. And you made a good point.
Does it work in that order?
What do you mean?
The schedule comes out in August.
Well, I'm just saying, if when the NBA schedule comes out and then, whatever the national television schedule comes out, I'm new to this, so just bear with me, right?
You work for this network.
Yeah, but I'm brand new. I'm like the Jason Tatum of this, right? Bear with me. I got talent. I'm trying to get better.
He has hair, though.
A lot more hair. But no, I just more think that, if you're letting the NBA know, what they were getting upset about is when guys were showing up and they were like, oh, we're going to send these guys home, right? The NBA was finding out day of or the day before that these guys weren't going to be on national television. I think that if you're letting the NBA know ahead of time, I think that's a much easier process. And like you said, they want to play till June. And a guy just finished playing in June, so resting him a little early, I think that's probably the best bet.
And you make such a great point about the Spurs game. If he set that one out, it would be so much backlash for it. He's trying to avoid Greg Popovich. So that's on the schedule makers then. Don't schedule this as a back-to-back. Seriously, if both those games matter, you have to recognize that there's potential for him to pick and choose.
I am interested to watch this. I've been asking Adam Silver about this really since the draft lottery, the couple times we've had him on this show, about, hey, are we just going to see this more? And I think that all your points are exactly valid. This is what they need to do to play till June. This is what they did, and they talked to the league about it, and obviously they had good enough reasons. Well, if that's the case, you have a schedule set up where one of your best players and maybe a couple others following suit will say, we just shouldn't play all these games. What does that tell your national TV partners? What does that tell the fans who buy tickets? And I think that is leading to these serious discussions. We heard for the first time in the last few months that the competition committee is actually now looking at specific proposals for a shortened schedule. We're still a ways away from that. It hasn't happened yet, but it is being discussed in a way it has never been, at a higher level it has never been discussed before.
I agree, right? And I think, I don't like the idea of shortening schedule, and we don't have to get into that, but I think for players, what your body feels like. And there's something to be said about being able to play that 82, that guys have played for 50, 60, like guys have done it the entire NBA. You should be able to do it. And they already made changes. There's less back-to-backs. Mm-hmm. There's an easier travel schedule.
4 and 5s.
There's less training camp. They have dialed back so much that now you're like, we're just going to only have them play 70 games. I don't think that's the answer. We can't keep going back and giving more and more and more. It's like, hey, let's just play a 25-game schedule, have a single elimination championship, and call it a day. I think you're getting away from what being a professional means.
I mean, but you might not get to decide that. If they're resting him games...
Oh, they could care less what I think. They could care less what I think.
But that's the thing, is that you can legislate it and say, hey, it's got to be 82 and we're standing firm, and if you give a little here, it's just going to keep going, slippery slope, all of that stuff. But if the teams are finding ways and elite players are finding ways, I'm watching an example of a guy who rested for a certain percentage of games and then won Finals MVP and won a title doing it. You can make the rules one way, but as we see, they got permission to do this, and they said, hey, it's within the structure.
Well, you've also had examples of guys playing 82 and winning championships and winning MVP. So we can't just look at this because we're coming off this year. He was coming off a legitimate knee injury. We saw him struggle through the postseason. His knee was bothering him. We can't compare that to a completely healthy guy that just wants a day off. That's the part that I think is apples and oranges, and we need to evaluate that.
We'll see what happens, right? Because I agree with you. Look, he had a little limp when he was getting off the airplane for his free agency meetings, right? So this is totally legit, and it's legit clearly in the way they're managing it because they've run it through the league, and the league had such a concern about this, they instituted a $100,000 fine, and they're like, no, this one's actually okay. I am just interested in the copycat nature of the way the NBA works and whether we're going to see more of it.
We're also saying we want teams to be honest about their player injuries. That doesn't happen. Sorry, folks. So I'm not so sure if we're going to get that information coming out anytime soon.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports analysis and highlights, download the ESPN app. And for live streaming and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.